Good morning, and again, welcome to Michigan Farm and Garden. Folks, we have a great show lined up for you this morning. Certainly, we know that people are getting more interested. We talk about the foodie movement, folks learning more about the food supply, learning more about where that food comes from. So we're going to have some really frank discussions this morning and learn a little bit more about that. My first guest is Terry Fleck. He is with the Center for Food Integrity, and he's going to talk a little bit about that organization and what they do as far as opening up that discussion and getting consumers more aware as to what goes on in agriculture and how that food is produced. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then he's going to be back for a second interview and talk a little bit more about the organization, how they've been able to work with producers and also consumers and really open up some of those lines of communication. It was a great opportunity for us to have Terry here. He was doing some meetings in Michigan. So we got him to be able to come on and talk a little bit about what they're doing, share a little bit more information with you, looking at that national level as far as their activities and a little bit about that discussion. Then I'm also very excited to have back with us Becky Cunnigham. Becky is with the Michigan Ag Council, and that is a Michigan-based group, if I could say that this morning, a Michigan-based group that's really looking at the opportunities to have that dialogue in Michigan to make sure consumers understand where their food comes. And she's going to tell us about the organization, but also an event they just held where they actually took some folks out to a farm, showed them what went on, and then took them through that whole processing side so they could see how that gets processed through and how that ends up in the food supply. Then for our recipe, it is certainly getting close to Halloween. So we are going to do a recipe for peanut butter eyeballs, thanks to my husband, Brett. Folks, it's going to be a great show. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message.
It's time for the Michigan Farm and Garden Fact of the Week, brought to you by the Corn Marketing Program of Michigan.
Michigan's food and agriculture sector contributes an estimated $91.4 billion to Michigan's economy. That's an increase of more than 50% between 2004 and 2010. For more information, go to productcenter.msu.edu.
Corn touches your life every day. With over 600 items in the store that contain corn, it's America's renewable resource. There are amazing new products made from corn, like comforters, clothes, corn stoves, dinnerware, and of course, ethanol.
Corn, America's renewable resource, powering industry, feeding America, and fueling the future.
Thanks to Michigan's corn farmers, the future is bright for innovative products made from corn. To learn more about how corn touches your life, visit our website.
And welcome back. We are back with Terry Fleck from the Center for Food Integrity. Terry, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Jody. It's great to be here.
We got you in Michigan, and we thought we'll get you here on the show.
Wonderful, wonderful. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you here, and I'm going to have you tell folks about the Center for Food Integrity, because I would bet that's an organization a lot of the viewers out there have not heard of.
Sure. Well, the Center for Food Integrity has been around since 2007. We were formed, actually we're an international organization with the sole mission of building consumer trust and confidence in today's food. Actually, the genesis for why we were founded, we knew that agriculture was growing, we knew that our food needs globally were growing, and as we were doing that, there was some tension and confusion and maybe even some pushback if farms wanted to expand. And so we originally came together thinking that what we needed to do was to really talk about the image of farm and food and communicate that to consumers. And we were in a pretty high-level meeting when a food system executive said, you know, you don't have an image problem, you have a trust problem. And the reality is that today's consumers are just disengaged from the food system and they don't trust you. So that's really what formulated then our mission of building consumer trust and confidence. And it's our idea and our hope that we will not only lead the public conversation about today's food at the center, but also to talk to those in the food system to more closely align their practices with consumer perceptions and consumer attitudes today.
Well, and I think that's so important. You know, we talk on the show, we're getting further and further away from the farm, and people just don't know what goes on there. And if you don't know and you don't understand, it can cause a trust issue or be a scary issue.
Well, it sure can, and you're quite right, Jody. I mean, it's unique this point in time, but people are generationally removed from the food system and geographically removed from the food system. So therefore, they may not have grown up. You may have to go back 2, 3, possibly 4 generations before you find someone in that family that actually grew up on a farm. And today's farm has changed. The reality, the use of technology, the responsible use of technology, integration, consolidation, has happened in a lot of areas within our culture and our lives today. We just have to simply look at our phone or our internet to give us that example. But it's also happened in food. And so we have this combination of people being geographically and generationally removed, plus major changes within the food system, and suddenly consumers are saying, you know what, I really don't know how my food gets to the store, I don't know what's in my food, and I have questions. And put the digital age in here, the fact that everybody that has a cell phone is now a cinematographer, and you've got a public that's asking more and more questions. And so therefore, those of us in food and agriculture just have to be more transparent and certainly more visible and observable in the things that we do.
Well, and I think that's so important how you say that, because, you know, I work for farmers, my different jobs throughout my career, I've always worked for farmers, and farmers are good, hardworking people, but they're not out in front. They seem to want to be left alone, let me do my work, I'll get the job done, I'll put out good food, but they're not always engaged in that conversation as to what happens on my farm. You know, I do a good job, leave me alone.
Yeah, and part of that too is that they want the freedom to operate. They want to be able to do what they're skilled at doing with minimal outside disruption. And the reality is today we can't always do that, in the fact that the public gives us either the social license to do what it is that we want to do, or they will exercise social control, depending on whether or not they trust us. So at the center, one of the things that we do is we do research consumer attitudes in regards to food. And as we were centered around trust, we wanted to know what were the primary drivers to trust, what was going to build that. And we found 3 primary drivers: influential others, which are typically friends and family or credentialed individuals that we would trust, our competencies, our ability to do the work. And then the third one is confidence, or what we call value similarity, where the consumer asks, do you align with my values, and can I count on you to do the right thing? The big thing that our research discovered is that confidence, or shared values, is 3 to 5 times more important in building consumer trust than our competencies. So while we've been thinking if we can just explain what we do, then people will understand it and accept it, is totally wrong. The reality is the consumer isn't so interested in what we do. Consumer is interested on whether or not you share my values. Are you like me?
Very, very interesting, because you're right. I mean, having worked in agriculture, that's what we always try to do, is talk the science side. And that's just flooring to know you want to know us more as people and what we would do.
Yes, and many of the questions that we have in today's food system aren't so much science questions, they're ethical questions. They're asking questions like, should you house that many animals in a single place? Should you be utilizing genetic modification to my seeds? Should you be using antibiotics in raising animals that I consume? And oftentimes we say, well, science says we can, and science is definitive in that regard, but the consumer's saying, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you should do that, and can and should are 2 totally different questions. And where the consumer gets frustrated is when they ask an ethical question and we give them a science answer.
Well, and Terry, that's so interesting as we look at this and see how things come together and how we can look at moving ahead. And I think we'll go ahead and we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and let's talk a little bit about that, how that comes together, and we're able to talk about the science side of it, but also relate that back to consumers so they know how those decisions are made.
Great.
Does that sound good?
Great, sound good.
Folks, stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this message, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what goes on the farm and how we need to make sure you get that information.
Cherry Marketing Institute wants you to know about tart cherries. Cherry's red color comes from powerful antioxidants. Available year-round, it's easy to incorporate cherries into your daily diet. Visit choosecherries.com.
Michigan's 1,000 apple growers take pride in producing delicious apples from one generation to the next. From the Great Lakes come great flavors. Look for locally grown Michigan apples.
Have Jody speak at your next agricultural event. Go to jodylive.com.
And welcome back. We are back with Terry Fleck for the Center for Food Integrity. Terry, I'm so glad you could be here. And to me, this is such a wonderful conversation talking about, you know, what we do in agriculture and how maybe we don't communicate it as well as we should.
Sure. And Jody, one of the things that we talk about at the center is sustainability. Now, sustainability means a lot of different things to different people, but sustainability for us is really doing more with less. We realize that we have a growing global population. We're going to have over 9 billion people. We have to feed them in some form or fashion. We're not creating new planets here, and so we've got to find a way to feed more utilizing fewer natural resources. And so for those of us in food and agriculture, that's very important in how we do that. And for the consumer, that's typically not top of mind. They have questions. So sometimes when we share this information, people will interpret, well, science isn't important. No, it is important, but you have to understand that you have to keep the science and the economics in alignment or in balance with ethical standards. Because again, the consumer is asking that question, do you share my values? Are you responsible? Are you respectful of me? Are you honest and truthful? They want to know that you are like them in that regard. And when you cross that barrier and they understand your values and they can identify with those values, then you can bring in the science information, which is important because you have to have that objectivity. Then you can also bring in the economic message, which is important because at the end of the day, consumers understand that those of us in food production and processing have to make a profit in order to have a sustainable system. But it's keeping all of those pieces in balance. And so it's not emphasizing economics or science over and above an ethical standard. It's talking about all three of those in concert. And that's really what leads to a sustainable system, and where people then can begin to understand, okay, now I understand technology, innovation is important. We need it to feed people, but I also know that you're responsible in doing the right thing when it comes to my food.
Well, and I would say too, is I know you're out and you've worked with ag groups and looked at consumers and consumer groups. How are you finding those conversations coming together?
Well, they come together quite nicely. Oftentimes consumers, I mean, the first point of concern that a consumer normally has with the food system is its safety. And is my food safe? And you can understand that. If you've got young mothers at home and you're raising children, you hear about a food safety scare or a food safety incident, you want to know that I can feed my family this food and not worry about it. So that's a key concern. Other concerns that they would have are certainly going to be around the environment. They're going to be around food prices and the economics, making food affordable. But again, people mostly want safe food, they want affordable food, and they want food that is nutritious and healthy. And those are going to be the primary drivers of all consumer decisions surrounding food today.
Well, and I think that's so important because when we look too at the diversity, you know, we talk about the global markets and you go to the grocery store and you look at all those choices, you know, it seems like consumers are getting more engaged in where did my food come from? Do I know who produced that food? And so it seems like that local food movement has really taken on. We talk about the foodies, but it really seems like food more than ever is part of that conversation piece.
Sure. And again, these are conversations we're having in a developed country. Because we have the disposable income, we can afford to have food raised in accordance or in alignment with my social values. The rest of the world, you don't find this conversation going on in China or India or Africa. So it's simply a developed world conversation. But they're very real questions, and you can get all kinds of food. And that's one of the things at the center. We support food choice. So regardless of the type of food that you want, it's probably available out there. But that doesn't mean that the other food choices there are anything less than some kind of a specialty that you would want in your food today.
Well, and I know as we look at this and look at the conversation, you know, you've worked us through a strategic planning with the Michigan Ag Council, and one of the things we've talked about too is social media, because that has really changed, you know, the conversation as we're talking about it, and the immediacy, and almost sometimes folks who become self-proclaimed experts on some of the different topics and some of the different issues.
Well, it is. Social media is definitely a force out there, and something that all of us and it's forcing us to not only be reactive, but it's forcing us to be interactive. And again, this is making sure that the food system is transparent, that the food system is observable. But we know that when people want information about food, they're predominantly going to two places: friends and family. Again, people that I know that have the same worldview that I have, and credentialed people that I would trust, a doctor, a dietitian, a veterinarian, those kinds of things. Secondly, they're going to the web to get their information. And they typically want an unbiased site where they can get their questions answered about food. And that's why at the center we have a site, www.bestfoodfacts.org. And there we answer common consumer questions about today's food. Anything from how food is raised and production practices and how it's processed to what's this white powder on my carrots mean. So again, www.bestfoodfacts.org is where your listeners can go and find third-party, unbiased, credentialed information about today's food system.
Well, Terry, you've covered a lot, so we're almost out of time. This always happens so fast, but is there anything else that I haven't given you an opportunity to mention to us or tell us about, or a resource that we might need to know? And I will make sure I link to that website so that folks can go ahead and visit and learn a little bit more.
Well, again, if they want to learn about the Center for Food Integrity, just go to foodintegrity.org. And that'll tell you a little bit about what we do. It'll have all of our research available on that site. Good. And then just encourage consumers to either go to farmersfeedus.org, where they'll learn about how farmers produce their food today, or Best Food Facts if they got specific questions.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
And thank you for all the work. We appreciate it. Folks, certainly we know when we look at Michigan agriculture, we know how important it is. We know we produce over 200 different commodities just here in our state. So when we look at that bigger picture, when we look at that global picture, there's a lot of implications when we look at the food system, when we look at production. Make sure you do your homework, learn a little bit more about it. There is a great story to tell, and if you can't get the information you want online, let me know, and we will bring a guest on the show to talk about it. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message.
This chicken is beak over claw for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one chicken may not be too much to cluck about, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing: our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
And welcome back. We are back with Becky Cunnigham of the Michigan Ag Council. Becky, welcome back.
Hi, Jody. Thanks for having me again.
It's great to have you here. And, we talk about the dialogue for food. In Michigan, we have the Michigan Ag Council. So I'm going to have you start and tell us a little bit about what it is, and then we'll talk about the different projects that we do.
Sure. The Michigan Ag Council is a group of ag businesses and commodity groups that work together to provide awareness of Michigan's ag industry and also consumer confidence in Michigan agriculture and food. Some of the projects that we pride ourselves in are the Farm Fresh Food blog, which is a blog hosted on mlive.com, written by farmers for consumers, so that they may get a taste of what it's like to farm, what it's like to be a farm family, and they can meet the families that raise their food. We also operate a monthly e-newsletter, Michigan Foodie News, that goes out to around 11,000 subscribers around the state, and it contains recipes, feature stories about Michigan farm families, hot topics in agriculture, and foodie trends.
Well, and I think those are so important because, we do the Foodie News. I love the name because it does seem like there's so many folks that are foodie these days. We want to learn more about it. We certainly want to be interested. And for me, it's been fun to watch how some of those programs, like the blog, the Foodie News, have turned into actual programs that you've been out doing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm equally thrilled about those programs. We just hosted our first ever bus tour. We had a Pure Michigan Agriculture bus tour in Southeast Michigan. We invited a group of around 10 mommy bloggers to board our bus and hop on to tour a dairy farm, followed by Michigan Dairy, Kroger's dairy processing plant, and wrap up with a Michigan-themed lunch at a Kroger store in Northville. It was a great event. The moms tweeted along the tour. They were sharing pictures, sharing their experience. It was just wonderful to see those aha moments when they learned that milk is never touched by human hands, when they learned that cows receive exceptional care, that there are no antibiotics in their milk. It's just absolutely incredible to watch these consumers meet the farmers firsthand and get a real-life look at where their food comes from.
Well, and too, for folks, I know we have a lot of the audience that's ag folks, we have some non-ag folks. When we're talking about the mommy bloggers, let's talk specifically about kind of who they are and what they're focusing on.
Definitely. In the online community, mommy blogging has kind of exploded. These stay-at-home moms, they want resources and information from their peers. That's where they go to for their information. So to find these online opinion leaders who are willing and eager and excited to broadcast information and real information and the truth about Michigan farmers is excellent, because those who follow them will be able to receive the information.
Well, and I think it's neat too to actually get them out there. And we have some tough weather in Michigan, so there are days it's nicer than others, aren't there, to be out there. But for them to actually get to walk through that dairy facility and walk through that processing plant, kind of like you said, what a neat experience to be able to see how it's actually done versus, sometimes I think we get a thought in our head and don't really realize all the science, all the steps, and all the food safety that's involved.
Exactly. After speaking with some of the bloggers on the tour, there were a couple comments that just reinforced the point that you just said. One was that farmers were surprisingly humane. So this perception that they weren't was destroyed when they got the chance to actually tour a farm. Another woman said that farmers are exceptionally intelligent.
That's what we like to hear. We work with the farmers. That's what we like to hear. And certainly when we look at everything that goes on the farm and to have the tour that really kind of pulls in with the bigger program that the Ag Council has been working on for the Pure Michigan.
Yeah. We'd like to brand these programs under the Pure Michigan Agriculture theme to take it to the next level. Our media campaign took care of raising awareness of Michigan agriculture, but now we need to build the consumer confidence, which is where programs like this come in.
Well, and I know we've looked at stuff, you've done billboards, that great radio piece with Tim Allen, that's pretty awesome too. And what do you see as we move ahead? More Pure Michigan, more tours?
Certainly you can expect to see more Pure Michigan Agriculture, Pure Michigan Farmer. Those are our brands. And as we work together as a group to come up with our next partnership with Pure Michigan for our media buy, you can also anticipate that we will have plenty more projects.
Well, and Becky, where should we tell folks if you want to sign up for the Foodie News, if you want to take advantage of the blog, let's tell them one more time, what do we do, how do they get engaged in this discussion?
Definitely. To view our online resources, the Foodie News and the Farm Fresh Food blog, you can go to www.miagcouncil.org and click on our projects tab. There you'll find the links to all sorts of fun websites.
Well, and I know we're looking at the website, we're going to do some things, make some changes, so I just want to make sure we let folks know we're out there, and probably they should be watching for the Michigan Ag Council.
Definitely.
Becky, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me again, Jody.
We appreciate it. Folks, when you think about Michigan agriculture, there's so much to know. There's so much to learn about. It's very important that we have organizations like the Michigan Ag Council on a state level that are looking out for the opportunities, bringing commodity groups, bringing ag business, bringing partners like Kroger together to help tell that story of Michigan agriculture. So make sure you learn more, Pay attention, watch for that Pure Michigan Agriculture and the Pure Michigan Farmer information, because there's just going to be more of it out there so you can learn even more about Michigan agriculture. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message with a very neat Halloween treat.
This hog is head over hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Welcome back, and folks, happy Halloween is just around the corner. Wanted to share a very easy recipe. This was super for me. I didn't even have to do anything at all as far as pulling this together, but this is a recipe that Brett has made for many years at his famous Halloween parties, and he sent my own little decoration so I could bring a rat right with me and show you how you might want to be able to put these out for a Halloween get-together. Very, very easy. These are called peanut butter eyeballs. Basically, you take and sift 2 cups of powdered sugar. Then you mix that with 1 cup of peanut butter, 6 tablespoons of butter, 1 teaspoon vanilla. Mix those together, make balls, and then you just take those balls and you dip them in chocolate, and then you can pick whatever color M&Ms you would like to pick to be able to use for the eyes. One thing I really, really like about this recipe is if you're one of those folks like me that has some nut allergies, you can make this with the soy butter. And the soy butter, we just used different color eyeballs to know which ones were peanut butter and which ones were soy, but those soy ones were absolutely wonderful. And I brought a shot with me so you could see how well these actually went over in our house. That is my little Rachel. And you can see a little bit in the picture, but not too well, but there is soy butter all over her face, and she's asking for yet even more. So very easy to make at home, and a very easy way to get the kids involved, just helping rolling and shaping those. If you would like to try this recipe, as always, you can visit us online at MichiganFarmAndGarden.com or write to Michigan Farm and Garden Recipes, P.O. Box 461, Williamston, Michigan 48895. If you want just this recipe, just send me a self-addressed stamped envelope. I can print it off and get it right in the mail to you. Otherwise, we will put you on the list for the quarterly mailings. So folks, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful Halloween. And certainly get out there, look for Michigan agriculture, take advantage of the bounty that we have here in our state. Certainly when you're looking at recipes, I mentioned the peanut butter, the easy soy substitute. These are really easy things to make, especially if you're like me and you have a preschool Halloween party coming up. Have a great Halloween, have a wonderful week, and trick or treat. See you next week from MGLI. Bye-bye.